17 points of the game were a result of the combination Dame Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo. What I didn't show you, to get to 100, they doubled Dame, Dame kicked it, Crowder 3, and then it just rolled from there. I was ecstatic watching the performance. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Dame Lillard 39 points, and they scored the final 18. But Shady, break it down for me. They put me on notice.
I told you.
We knew what they was going to do together, but I was so pleasantly surprised. Did Dame, Giannis, the Bucks, did they put the league on notice?
Yeah, yes they did. And that was my Sixers, so I was watching the game closely. They don't have any weaknesses, right? Ooh. And the sad part is, like, they are just getting together. Even like small things, like they were looking, like, sometimes with Dame, Giannis, are you going? Am I going? Who's going to go? And then after a while, this came organic. The thing I like about this game is he didn't force anything. When a debut game like this, you think he might shoot a lot of threes, he's trying to shoot a lot of shots. No, he went in spurts. If you really watch the game, he went in spurts where he ran through the offense, right? And then after a while, he took over. And he had 13, 14 points in a certain point of a time. Late in the game, another one, a couple points at a time. And it just shows you how good this team's going to be. When Giannis can't get off, he was doing very, very well, right? But then when Embiid they locked in, when they got late in the game, Embiid did a good job of playing defense. No double teams, big on big. He couldn't bully Embiid. What happens then? So they have a break, they have a stall? Nah, it's Dame time. Dame started cooking threes. They started doing the thing with Steph Curry. But when they passed the half court, they had the two screens there. He was killing that. Right side, left side, tray ball to the hoop. So I love what they're doing. It's going to be tough for my Sixers to beat them. It's going to be tough for anybody to beat them.
There we go.
To put numbers to it, 17 points is what Dame Lillard had in the second quarter. Then James Jones, 14 points is what Dame Lillard had in the final quarter. So like Shady was saying, Dame Lillard showed up in spurts. He absolutely did. It was a brilliant Picasso-esque on the basketball court type of performance from that combination. I see Hoodie James is in full effect.
Hoodie.
It's good to see you. It's good to see Hoodie James. James, what did you make of the performance?
Oh, man, this was impressive. This right here was impressive. As I was watching the game, I thought about Joy talking about consistency, right? Because when they stepped on the basketball court, these dudes look like they've been on the basketball court with each other for a minute, right? And I was watching the game, and I'm like, I would love to play with a superstar like Giannis. And what I mean by that is zero selfishness. If it's Dame time, it's Dame time. I don't care what I've accomplished. I'm all about winning. He was trying to find Dame to get him the basketball other than take this game over. But watching the game, I talked about just the checklist that Dame Lillard had to go off of, right? And number one on my checklist was be aggressive. 39 of them things, but 17 for 17 from the free throw line. That's attacking the basket. Obviously, people can't guard you because he got fouled a couple times on the three-point line, but that's aggressive from the start, from the tip. And then you say, lead the second unit, 15 points when Dame Lillard was in there and Giannis was on the bench. That's leading the second unit, making sure, hey, man, this team is going to be okay, right? You can get you some rest, Giannis. We got you. And then the pick and roll, right? You watch the pick and roll, and they just getting started, but I want to show a couple plays here of the pick and roll that they can't stop. This right here, boom, bounce pass, easy layup, downhill. Giannis go downhill because you got to play Dame for the three ball. And then right here, you see this. Two of them sag off. Dame Lillard said, I'm going by you. I'm going to the bucket. This is the very first game. Teams are not going to know how to deal with Dame, Dalla, and Giannis in this pick and roll. But all three boxes was checked. This team is going to be problems.
I love it. Joy, did they put the league on notice?
Yeah, I think they did. That's a really good game overall. And the Sixers played well.
They did.
They played well. So it's not like this was, you would think looking at this stat line that it was a blowout.
No question.
It came down to the wire. They needed Dame to come up big. Might I even say it was a little bit of a Captain Marvel performance. It was like a little Thor. It was strong. It was very superhero-esque. I say that jokingly because Milwaukee has 2 1s. And the way that they played last night, you should be very excited if you're a Bucks fan, because when you have 2 1s, like, and I'm not jumping too far ahead of myself, believe me, when you had LeBron and Wade was a 1. LeBron was a 1.
Yes.
Wade never became Robin, but you shift, you move. Sometimes you got it, sometimes I got it. And for Giannis to play the way that he played last night and to allow Dame to be in that space where you would normally want Giannis closing the game, where you would normally have Giannis close that game out, to allow Dame to do that, that's exciting because Dame can do that. Dame can do what he did last night. which is really, really scary. And to close it out is really what's the most exciting part of that. Because, like I said, the Sixers did play a close, great game. They both played great, and so did the Sixers. You're looking at the league MVP on the other side of that. They gave him some work, too. So to be able to do that and close the game is what's most impressive.
What I don't want to jump over, is the first thing you hear when you walk into a new class. And let's all go back to college for a second. I don't know how often you'll went to class, but let's go back to college for a second. Shady, if you remember, the very first thing that the teacher would say when they brought out the syllabus was, now, your grades are going to be divvied up. The final exam is worth 10%. The pop quizzes are worth 5%. Each midterm exam is worth 20%. And attendance.
That's the one.
That's the one. Worth 15%. If you don't show up, you can't even get a passing grade. Joy, what I don't want to skip over is the fact that we saw them two play. Y'all realize and remember, the big three for the Nets, they only played 12.7 of the plausible games. Kyrie Irving and Luka last year, they only played 57% of the plausible games. Kevin Durant with the Suns last year, they only played 30% of the plausible games. When we see superstars join forces with other superstars, we haven't even seen them play that often.
Yeah.
We've seen the Suns play 2 games, and Beal has yet to play one of them. And we were waiting that one.
Yeah.
So the fact that they even showed up and showed out is just as impressive as anything because, again, there's no guarantee of that, not in today's NBA. So I don't want to jump over that, Shady, when I talk about what was most impressive. But if I'm talking about what I really saw, I love the fact that the puzzle piece fit. I don't know if y'all have ever played nephews, nieces, maybe yourself, and y'all are playing with the puzzles, if you will, and you look at like, oh, I think it's this piece, and you put it there and it fits perfectly. It fit perfectly yesterday. So, Shady, when I think about what was most impressive, it was the fact that the puzzle piece fit. Dame Lillard, 39 points, he closed it out. Giannis wasn't even trying to close it out. Dame, you do it. Yeah. You the closer. You the closer. So I loved that aspect of it all. Shady, what was most impressive?
What most impressive for me was that Dame Lillard didn't force anything. He let everything come to him, right? And I think sometimes as great players, right, you want to showcase and look, the trade's real. I'm the player they needed. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you why they got me. He didn't do that. If you look at the way he scored his points, right, first quarter, he had 4 points, right? He didn't even try it. Second quarter, he had 17, right? Third quarter, 4 points. And to finish the game off, 14 points. Yeah. If you can give me that, right, I could take that because you're not trying to force yourself into offense. And the only thing I didn't like is Chris Middleton didn't really get involved.
Of course.
And he's a special piece for them. And I think he's been declining. And now I'm trying to figure, is it that he's declining while he's not in the rotation as much offensively? Or is this that he didn't get involved just because of Dame was hot and Giannis is there?
He is on a minutes restriction, just for clarity.
Okay. So I was wondering, because even last year, though, even the playoffs, he didn't look the same, right? I know he's battling injuries, but that's the only thing I didn't like. But overall, I just love how the way Dame approached the game, wouldn't spurts to score, he didn't force anything, and was a real team player.
I think Chris is going to be one of those ones who do kind of struggle, especially when he's in there with the starting lineup.
Right.
These two dudes are so ball dominant. Dame is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. Obviously, Giannis is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. But what was most impressive to me is just the attack mindset that Dame Dollar had. Like, it was no settle. It was no, I'm finna press and try to crank up 23s and let everybody know I can shoot. It was every bit of Dame Dollar's game, right? He was attacking the basket, he was shooting, he was step backing. It was every bit. But to get to the free throw line and not miss one, 17 for 17, if Dame plays like that and has that mindset, especially with Giannis being out there to be on the offensive glass and things like that, this team is going to be tough to beat. But getting to the line 17, and being 17 for 17, that's big time. That was impressive.
It's the most in NBA history without a miss in the season.
Didn't even know that, but I knew it was good.
It's the best ever. It's really, really good. Yeah. And that's what's most impressive to me is we know that Dame is a superstar. We know he's a top 75 player. We know he was the face of an organization for years. So to come out with all the pressure and eyeballs on this new move, which you asked for and Giannis did as well, and the expectations, and put on a performance like that is very impressive. To go back to Chris Middleton for a second, it will be interesting how they implement him because he's used to being the two to Giannis. And anytime you have another star come in that jumps... What?
No.
They're making faces. No. jumps over that player. There's an adjustment period to that third person and how they do get implemented into the game plan, what their role becomes. And when you have an organization that's looking to win a championship, I always talk about roles because you have to buy into a new role sometimes. And that can be That can be an adjustment egotistically, even if you were not an egotistical player. It can be an adjustment for your style of play. It can be an adjustment for your minutes. It can be an adjustment for your position. So how they manage that and how they maneuver that will be important because he will still be an important piece for them in the championship.
You think he's declining?
Yes, but remember he was hurt last year. He had the wrist.
He had a whole offseason to kind of.
But remember, he's still got the knee. Well, one, he's older, so he's declining. But everybody's making a brilliant point that we're not set to dive into. But it's always hard for the third person.
There it is,
remember the
right
show
there.
Three's Company.
There it is.
Like, there's a reason there's a phrase called Three's Company. Because what's going to happen with that third person? We remember with Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh was a dog in Toronto. Forget Chris Bosh. Kevin Love. Kevin Love was a monster. Kevin Love would put up 20 and 20. Then he got to Cleveland, and he was just like, an afterthought. Chris Bosh got to Miami, and it was like, afterthought. It's going to be hard on Chris Middleton.
Still, but even that, they weren't the superstar level, because I remember Chris Bosh. He was in the East. He was in Toronto. He was giving out crazy work. The thing is, the role changed, the shots, attempts went down. But they don't win a championship without Chris Bosh.
Of course.
So I do think about that part of it, where Chris Middleton, I don't know if he's really even productive anymore.
I don't disagree with you. Remember last year, though, in the playoffs, when he finally got healthy, he showed up much more than he did in the regular season versus the Miami Heat. Now, he wasn't good enough to carry them, but he showed up much more. I think, James, you alluded to this. The other thing that's incredibly impressive, the humility around that building.
Man.
Unheralded. The humility around that building. I don't know if you are watching the pregame show. Giannis said it's Dame's team. Giannis got the game ball
off the rip.
He said Giannis said it's Dame Lillard's team. He got the game ball at the end of the game for scoring the most points in the history of that organization. He gave the game ball to the head coach. Giannis, you just scored the most points in the history of the franchise. A franchise that I believe Kareem was a part of. You just scored the most points in the history of the franchise, and you gave the game ball away. You a 7-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA player, and you said it's Dame's team before Dame even took a dribble.
So anything.
The humility of all of those players, Chris Middleton included, I think that's what's going to carry the Bucks.
But when you're a leader, when you're a superstar, when your best player is like that, everybody has to be like that. I remember playing with Tom Brady and small things that you didn't even think about. Players would be at the lunch table and guys would eat and they would go leave, right? And then one time, Tom Brady was like, hey, guys, pick up your stuff. He eats his food, throws his stuff away. So once he did that, we got to do it, right? The way he treats everybody in the building, you just fall in line. So now if your top guy does it, it makes it easier for everybody else to fall in line.
You can't do anything you do not ask other people around you to do.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.